Hello, my dear tanking comrades, and welcome to Reginaldesq. I'm Underhook, and this is my review of the premium Tier 8 German scout tank, the leKpz M41 90mm. I'm assuming that leKpz stands for leKpz, but I could be wrong. I'm just guessing. If you know, by the way, please put a correction in the comments. So anyway, is this tank any good? From what I've seen, yes it is. It's a very good tank. We are ably assisted in this review by the leKpz. He's a subscriber of ours. His name's actually Ethan, and he sent me this replay because I don't buy premium tanks. I didn't know that there was a German version, which is what this is, a German version of the M41 Bulldog. Basically, it's the same tank, except the 76mm gun was apparently bored out. This actually did happen, apparently, bored out to 90mm and then shortened as well. So this thing has a unique characteristic compared to the standard M41 Bulldog, and that is, well, one, the gun does a lot more damage. It does 240 damage per shot, and instead of having 175 mils of penetration, it's 182 mils of penetration. OP premium. But the HE ammunition, have a look at that if you can see it on the left hand side of the gun stats there. It's not actually HE, it's HEP. I'm assuming that the P stands for penetration, so it's high explosive penetration ammunition. And as you can see there, there's 102mm of penetration on its HE shells and 320 average damage. So against enemy scout tanks or very lightly armoured artillery and enemy TDs, it can be pretty devastating and makes this tank, I think, it looks like, anyway, it's a lot of fun to play. So the leKpz has a game for us which is quite a good game. It's not what you'd call an uber super tank game, but it's a good game, and he makes use of all the ammunition types, and also doesn't, well, when I say all the ammunition types, he doesn't use any premium ammunition. So I like that because it shows me what can be done for an average tanker who doesn't want to spend a lot of money but maybe wants to get a premium tank. So without further ado, let's get into the comparison. Now, here we have the M41 90mm, the German one. Then we have the M41 Bulldog, which is the standard American version. And then the rest of the tanks I've got here are premium tanks that are also currently at Tier 8 scout tanks in the game. So like all scout tanks, our 90mm does get the scouting camouflage whilst moving. As you can see here, compared to the standard M41, it does have better penetration. Excuse me. It also has fantastic damage, 240 per shot compared to 170. So the gun is so far a lot better, although the rate of fire is slower at 9 rounds a minute, or so 6.6 seconds to reload, versus 5 seconds on the standard gun, which is fair enough since the damage and penetration is so much lower. Compared to the other premium tanks, well, the best penetration here is the leKpz 5, which has 221 mils of standard penetration. So that's great if you don't want to fire premium rounds. But it only does 165 damage, which is pretty low. Though it does have the, well, not the best rate of fire, but second best rate of fire. It does have a very good rate of fire, though, 4.9 seconds to reload. The T44 has the best, T44 lightweight has the best rate of fire at 12.5 amongst the premiums here. 4.8 seconds to reload. Has 182 mils of penetration, which is still pretty good, and 108 damage, which is kind of okay. Anyway, there you go. The worst, of course, is the ELC even, with 5.1, very slow rate of fire, 220 damage, and only 175 pen. Shell velocity is a negative on the M41 90mm, only 830mm shell velocity, which is quite slow when compared to the standard M41 Bulldog, which has a shell velocity of 1219. Very, very quick, the same as the T92, and just a little bit slower than the leKpz 5. So, making it very easy in the standard M41 Bulldog to hit moving tanks, and even to hit other tanks whilst you're moving. So that is a disadvantage of the German premium tank. So I guess that's a bit of a balancing factor. Aim time, though, is the equal best of any Tier 8 light tank, 1.8 seconds, which is incredible. The M41 Bulldog's not far behind at 1.9, and the T92 also has the 1.8. The worst is the ELC even with 2.9, which is pretty terrible on a light tank. Oh, hang on a second. No, the best is the Off-Panzer 5 at 1.5 seconds. Holy crumbs. And what does it have? It has 221 mils of pen as well. Gee whiz. Okay, that sounds balanced. Anyway, 0.38 dispersion, which we know dispersion doesn't mean that much. 0.3 for that Off-Panzer though as well. Whew, that looks balanced. Anyway, the moving dispersion, so the amount the gun loses its accuracy while moving or toe traverse, is not that much better than the M41 Bulldog. Sorry, not that much worse. Pretty similar. The T92 though is crazy good. So then we get on to dispersion while firing is a little worse than the other tanks. In fact, it's not the ELC even is the worst. Gee, that thing has some bad ratios. But it's yeah, it's not good. So it does lose a fair bit of accuracy after it fires, but then it does have a high damage gun. Elevation 17 degrees is not that great. 8 degrees of depression is pretty good, so it can work as a hill fighter. Not as good as the 10 degrees on the standard M41 Bulldog though. And the only one that's actually worse is the T44 lightweight in this amongst this comparison. I'm not comparing all the tanks. The only non-premium I have is the M41 Bulldog for the interest's sake, but the others are all premiums. So reverse speed is 24, which is pretty darn good. The forward speed though is 72.4, is the fastest that we're comparing it to today, and is faster than the M41 Bulldog 68, which means it probably has pretty tall gearing, which means it should be pretty sluggish on acceleration because the M41 has 800 horsepower. This thing only has 500, and the M41 is about the same weight. So considering this tank is substantially low on horsepower, it's like what, about a 40% less horsepower, and has a higher top speed, so it should have much worse acceleration. So it may be, I'm not sure, I haven't played it myself, but it looks like it's probably a bit more sluggish in acceleration. Its terrain resistances also aren't as good as the M41 Bulldog. So in that respect, it loses out. And the M41 Bulldog is very good in maneuverability. So it's not as good on that. It does have, though, 10% more hit points than the M41 Bulldog at 1100 rather than 1000, which is inexplicable in my book, considering it has exactly the same armor and pretty much the same layout everywhere. View range is the same at 400, which is equal best in tier, and the lightweight 390 and the ELC, poor ELC, at 380. Let's now just have a quick look at comparison in camouflage. So this doesn't have all the tanks, this isn't quite up to date. This is on the www.worldoftanksinfo.net website, and it doesn't have all of the new premiums in it, but it does have all of the non-premiums in there. And we can see that the M41 Walker Bulldog is the worst camouflage of the Tier 8 light tanks at 14.25 camouflage ratio, but inexplicably the German version has 15.9 camouflage. It's pretty much the exact same tank with the exact same turret, so why does it have better camouflage? I guess you get what you pay for. Anyway, let's get in and have a look at a bit of gameplay. Okay, so it's a Tier 8 game. The Nuclear Strategist is in a Tier 8 M41 90mm, so it's top tier, but it is a game that only has Tier 8s and Tier 7s, so it's not going to be a walkover. Now, I did not know, Ethan just sent me this game, I didn't know this tank even existed. So many premium tanks have been added to the game in recent years that I just can't keep up with them. And I didn't know there was a German version of the M41 Bulldog. So it's good to have these games on, and see these tanks so that you know what you're up against and what the tanks are capable of. So he's currently got an AP shell loaded, but he's just switching now to the HEP, which is a high explosive penetrating ammunition, because he's obviously expecting to encounter a scout tank first off. And he decides here to target one of these couple of scout tanks here. Now it only has 8 degrees of gun depression, not the 10 of the M41, so he does have to come a fair way over the hill here. He takes the tank out, they're doing 258 damage, which is awesome, but the AMX manages to get a return shot on him. Possibly, if he was in the standard M41 Bulldog, he would have got away with that shot without getting hit because of the superior gun depression. However, he wouldn't have taken that tank out with one shot. And it was probably worth it, taking a hit of 146 damage and destroying a tank is probably worth it. Let's see how this... He's back to AP ammo now. No trouble penetrating the Tiger with his 182mm of penetration. And he does 237 damage. Pretty decent damage for a scout tank. So he's pretty much in the area we'd want to be in a scout tank, and that he's in an area where he can spot enemy tanks by simply moving up to the bushes there. He's moving back here because he doesn't want to get spotted by the tanks, the IS there that's pushing out every now and then. He also probably wants to get some shots on it if it does pull out. And now that he's seen the IS has pulled back a bit, he's going up to the bushes again so he can get some more spotting done. Also putting those bushes there between him and the IS. And the IS has popped out, and he thought the IS was going to keep going forward, but the IS stopped and he missed. But let's see how he goes here. The accuracy seems okay. Now, it could be that we're just watching a particularly good and lucky game here, but so far the accuracy of the gun seems to be pretty darn good. But it could be just the fact, the same thing happens to me when I'm playing, that I really only show the replays where the gun works well. And there are some tanks that the guns aren't super accurate, but this seems to be okay at least. So the gun, I mean the tank looking at it at the moment does appear to be a little more sluggish than the standard M41 Bulldog, but it's definitely not slow by any means. I think he's trying to see if he can get a shot on that AMX there, but the Scorpion has reared its ugly head, and he gets 250 damage, not enough to kill it. Perhaps a HE shell would have worked better there on that tank. 236 though finishes off the J Panther. So this is so much different to playing the standard Bulldog, in that really you're able to devastate tanks with this amount of damage. Tanks on low hit points and stuff. The T20 is a tank with not much armour, so there's a couple of these shots he probably could use HE on them, but it's probably borderline, so you're probably better off sticking with the HEP and you know what you're going to get. He's playing a really good game here. He's using the bushes really well. So when he shoots at the tanks down there, he's effectively double bushed. Oh, he's been spotted though and hit. So I'm a little surprised that he got hit there. I don't know how he has been spotted. If I was him at the moment, I'd be thinking... And he got hit again by that T20 there. Now, he's more than 15 metres behind the bush. That was a bad miss. And he's been hit again. Who is spotting him? I'd be on the verge of calling hacks here, because I'd be thinking, how the heck am I getting spotted? But if the T20 was hacking, he'd still be shooting at us. So the fact he's not shooting at us means that he's not hacking. So somebody's spotting us from somewhere. Although the T20 is actually not in a position to shoot at us at the moment. But he's doing the right thing. He's moving back, using his gun depression instead of the camo, because for some reason he's getting spotted. And then we see, aha! That is the likely culprit who has been spotting us. Don't know why. I think that second shot, they just missed, is probably showing the shell velocity. The slower shell velocity is costing us there. Isn't that funny? That little artillery gun we just saw there that was on the ground had a mark of excellence on its barrel. I wonder if we go past it again. I never noticed that before. Anyway. So the enemy is capping now, 60% capped. And the nuclear strategist is feeling the pressure here. He's going to have a look at cap. Let's see if he can get a shot. Oh, that was a bad miss. Okay. So the gun isn't super accurate. It's more like you'd expect from a light tank. That one ricocheted. So that's more typical of what I expect from a light tank. I was thinking, oh, it's pretty accurate. But anyway, he helps save the day. Gets a shot on that guy. And they're in no danger now of being outcapped. The only danger now, in fact, is his own team capping before he can get any more damage done. So we're moving along here. We're doing 72 kilometers an hour right now, so the tank definitely isn't slow, but probably uphill. I would suggest this tank is not as good as the M41. But looking at the gun, the reload still certainly doesn't seem slow. I mean, it is slower than the M41, but really, who wants to sit out in front of a target doing shot after shot anyway? So he's now using the HE ammunition. He probably can't pen this Mod 1 with standard ammo, so showing there the HE ammo, he's still able to do some reasonable damage. Pretty good tank from the look of it. So that turned out to be a Class 3 game in the tank, and he also got the Confederate medal. Now, I was surprised to see a Class 3 because I thought he played a really good game. So, obviously, some people are having great games in this tank if that's only a Class 3. Hit a lot of tanks, as you can see. Let's have a look at the team score now. And he came 4th on his team for XP, 840 XP. That does seem a little low. I wonder why. Well, let's have a look anyway. The detail report. Fired 20 shots, so rate of fire is good. 14 hits, accuracy isn't good, and 13 of those penetrated or damaged. So it's got great penetration, and the HEP ammunition also means you can pretty much do damage under most circumstances. The accuracy, though, I mean, part of that missing was due to the slow shell velocity, so that is a disadvantage of the tank. Damage, though, 2,571 is pretty good for a Tier 8 scout tank. Quite impressive, really. The long range, a lot of that was long range shooting. So he received 3 hits, actually managed to bounce a shot. It really has no armor. It has about 25-30 mils of armor, I think. It's exact same armor setup as the M41 American version. The 10 tanks damaged, 4 destroyed. It's pretty darn good. Only 140 assistance damage done. That might explain why it was only a Class 3 game. I thought he would have got a lot more spotting damage than that, but probably wasn't pushing those bushes enough and wasn't actually doing the spotting, and that's probably what cost a fair bit of XP. But then again, you're probably not really rewarded that well for spotting in World of Tanks, so one could argue you're better off just getting the damage anyway. So I guess it's a toss-up. Now, one of the most important things, of course, in a premium tank is how much money did you make, because that's why one of the reasons people get them. 67,000 income, which is pretty darn good, and of that 57,000 was profit, which is pretty amazing. So he's walked out of a Class 3 game with 57 grand in his pocket. That's pretty darn good. As you can see, the ammunition very cheap. He didn't use any premium ammunition, and you don't really have to. It's got pretty good pen anyway. So walked out of it with a fair bit of cash. So as far as you know, making cash and all that goes, is it good? Yeah, you'd have to say yes. It does seem like a different version of the standard tank. I think, would I say it's OP compared to the standard American M41? I would say only because its camouflage is better, because that is inexplicable. If it was just the gun, I'd say it's a bit of a trade-off, and I can understand, yeah, and I'd say it's balanced. But because of that extra camouflage and the extra 100 hit points, extra 10% hit points, I'd say it's a little bit pay to win, because those two things can't really be explained in any other way. But anyway, good tank, great game. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. If you'd like to see more, please subscribe to Reginaldesq. And when you're playing, have fun.